Hello and welcome to the Wow Show, an hour full of stories from and for truck drivers on the road. We're going to have fun saying thank you for who you are and what you do as drivers. And we're going to talk to some people who know their stuff so that we can learn more. My name is David Binyachak. I'm your host. Let's get started. Good morning, drivers. This is David with the Wow Show. Today's show is all about, I'm feeling like I'm on Sesame Street, all about the word, brought to you by the word perspective. And so many of you know I'm a photographer and I produce the Wow Trucks calendar, which celebrates 13 drivers every single year. And I tell their story both through the images and the little bit of their story that we print out in the calendar. As a photographer, perspective is everything. And I'm going to say that also in relationships, perspective is everything. If you want great photos, perspective's important. If you want great relationships, perspective's important. And on today's show, we're going to cover both. So we're not only going to talk about, and I'm going to give you some tips on taking better photos and kind of seeing maybe what you weren't looking for before that, in the 17, 18 years that I've been a professional photographer, I've kind of built up over the years. I want to share that with you and give you some tips and tricks. And then we're going to talk with a really cool friend of mine. His name is Dr. Randy Johnson, and he is a psychologist on relationships. And we're going to talk about how perspective actually can help make your day better, whether it's dealing with the person on the loading dock that you just pulled into, dealing with your dispatcher, dealing with your GM, dealing with your family, dealing with friends. Perspective is everything. And so when we're done with Dr. Randy Johnson and applying perspective to relationships, it's going to be a cool segment. We're going to have two things that you'll enjoy. Number one, perspective from life on the road. And it's going to be telling the story of Justin Price, who was a driver with Jade Transport and the winner of this last month's contest on All Out Big Rigs No Limits on Facebook. Had a great time talking with him, getting his perspective on life on the road and driving and professional driving and things that are great about it and things that need to change. You're going to enjoy the conversation. We had fun with Justin and Ty Jam, and that's going to be airing. And then to end today's show, I'm excited to debut the first episode of Shop Talk with Dave James, Bar J Heavy Mechanical in Balzac, Alberta. They've come on to support the show. And a part of the show is going to be ongoing and it's going to continue to grow. Just people who know their stuff that can share practical things that make us better. In today's debut episode of Shop Talk, Dave's going to run us through a cool perspective that every driver needs to be really good at to prevent heartaches on the road, and that's the pre-trip inspection. And so Dave's going to walk us through. He walked me through, and I recorded it, what's involved in a good pre-trip inspection to kind of prevent unnecessary and unneeded breakdowns on the road. I think you're going to love it. So perspective, it's everything. Let's get at her. Get to it. Perspective in photography. It's amazing how perspective changes everything. I've in the past, what I've done is I've seen a photo that I really like, and I end up being in that location, in front of that building, or in front of that fountain, or in front of that lake. And I swear that I'm in the same place that this photo was in, but the photo I take looks nothing like it. And it's like, man, is my camera like what's going on here? I'm disappointed. Perspective matters. And so I want to talk to you about a few things. The first thing I want to talk to you for taking better photos, and this doesn't have to be with a DSLR, Nikon, or Canon camera that I use for my photography. It can be with your camera, your iPhone, your Samsung, your Galaxy, whatever it is that you're taking photos with, this stuff works. And so if you want better photos of your truck or your family, listen up. The first thing about perspective I want to talk about is shooting up, down, straight on. So the angle, whether it's straight on or you're shooting up or shooting down, will make the same object look different. And it's fun to play with. And I have to say that it's probably how I got noticed when I first started this truck photography and Wow Trucks back in 2006, 2007. I was dating a beautiful woman who carried a camera. And when you meet a beautiful girl who carries a camera, you buy one. and she's now my wife, and it's been awesome. But when I first started in truck photography, I did so at some of the shows, the Fergus Truck Show, the Pro Trucker Magazine, Alberta, British Columbia, Big Rig Weekends. And people would notice me not because, hey, look at that great looking guy, or not because of anything, but I was usually lying on the ground taking photos. And I'd have a few people yell at me, going, "You're going to get run over. You're going to get hurt." And like, watch out. But I was lying on the ground taking photos because as I had started photographing trucks and I wanted to make them look sexy, like I was doing with people in the wedding photography that I was helping my wife with, I figured this out, that when you shoot up, it makes things look bigger. And when it comes to big rigs, that's a good thing. And so I would lie on the ground and shoot up, and you know what? It does. When you shoot from down upwards to your subject, it makes them look bigger. With trucks, that's an amazing thing. And so, most people just stand facing their truck and they pull out their camera and they take the shot, and that's cool. That's straight on, and that lets you see eye to eye, and that gives you a perspective, and it might be the photo that you want. But why not try? When you can safely lie down and shoot up, why not try doing that? Now, let me say this, just as it makes trucks look bigger, and that's a cool thing because they are big rigs, gentlemen, do not, do not, do not photograph the girl in your life that way. That would be a recipe for disaster. When you shoot straight on, it's kind of eye to eye. And you know what? It can be important if you're photographing your dog and it's close up of their face. You want to see their eyes, and maybe shooting straight on is the right way to do that because it just makes their eyes, pop out, and you get that full view of eye to eye, and it's what you want to see. Shooting down is the opposite of shooting up. Shooting up makes things look bigger. Shooting down actually slims things down. And so if you can get some height and shoot down, a lot of times I do that because trucks have cool stuff on their roofs, but it also kind of slims them down. Aside from the trucking photography that I do, I do some automotive photography to help some dealerships sell their automobiles. And I've learned, and it's industry practice, that there is a right perspective that will actually sell cars more on the internet. Because today we tend to buy things online, and images, they either capture our attention or they don't. And there is a focal length and a distance away and straight on that I shoot cars that actually has been scientifically proven to have people go and stop at that photo and pay more attention to it. And so the first part about perspective and taking photos, I'm going to encourage you. You know what? Which is the right one? It's the one you love, or the one the person or the object that you're taking the photo of loves. And play around, lay down, straight on, shooting down. It's a lot of fun. The same object in the same place will look different, and you can choose which one that you like the best. I have to confess that since 2008, I have laid down on many city roads, country roads, parking lots, highways, byways, parkways, and it's been a blast. And I don't always lay down for my photos, but it's something that I always take into perspective and do that. The second thing when it comes to perspective and taking photos is just, is your distance from the subject. And as you get closer up to a subject with your phone or with your DSLR camera or whatever you're taking the photo with, it does make people look bigger and fatter. Even if you're not shooting up, if you're shooting up, that magnifies that effect. So if you shoot up and you're really close, it's like boom. And maybe that's what you want to do. But when you're shooting close up, it makes things look bigger and fatter. When you're shooting from farther away and zooming in, it makes an object look smaller and skinnier. And so again, if you're shooting a truck, hey, you know what? I'm going to advise you, get up as close as you want. If you want to emphasize the big and big rig, that's a cool way to do so without, A picture says 1,000 words. Well, here are the words that you're creating. You're creating the word big in the person that looking at the image just by being closer to it. If you're shooting people, then standing farther back and zooming in makes a person look skinnier, or any object that you're shooting skinnier. And for people, that tends to be important. And sometimes if you're shooting, a truck, you don't want it to look unusually fat. You want it to look more realistic. And so it may require you to step back and just play with the distance that you're taking the photo from, or the photo of the object from, and just play with that distance and zoom in to always get the same sort of crop, if you know what I mean, that you're kind of taking the same image, but because you're farther away, you have to zoom in to get that same sort of crop. It's going to give you a different look. Again, maybe the same person, the same place, the same object, but you're going to get a different photo. And so that perspective is important. The other part of perspective when taking photos that you can play around with is relates to distance, but it's not the distance between you and the subject. It's actually the distance between the subject and the backdrop. And I love playing with this. I mean, we all grew up, right? I mean, your family went on vacation. You saw the statue of whoever that may or may not still be there today, but you saw the statue of whoever. And what did they do? The person taking the photo lined up the family directly next to the statue, or directly in front of the flower bed, or directly in front of the building. And there was zero separation between the group of people that are smiling and holding hands, and the object behind them. And what that does is, when you look at those photos, it tends to blend all the objects in the photo. And when I first started taking pictures of trucks, I fell into that same trap where I would see a cool building. And what I would do is I would park the truck right underneath the building and take the photo. And I would look at some other truck photos and I would go, you know what? Why are they so much better? And it took a while for me to figure out it's because the truck wasn't right in front of the photo and didn't blend in with the wall. When I take a photo of the truck, the photo needs to be the star. Sometimes you're taking photos of family members or people and they need to be the star. It's just a little thing, but when you actually create some separation between what you're shooting and the backdrop, it magnifies, it puts the focus on the person that, or the truck that you're taking a photo of. And actually, because it's now separate, gives better attention to the cool building or the cool fountain or the cool person in behind. I'm going to post this photo on, if you go to wowtrucks.com and you're catching the replay of this show, under this show, I'm going to post one of the photos, favorite sort of people photos that I've taken over the years, and it's trucking related. I had the honor and privilege to be with Ben and Megan Overton in Winnipeg, Manitoba, when they gave birth to, well, I wasn't in the room. I just happened to be coming to Winnipeg as Meg. Let's be clear about that. I was not in the room. As they gave birth to their daughter Evie. What a sweetheart! And you know what? She was 4 days old. Can I say this? Perspective is everything. We didn't focus on newborn photography, my wife and I, as we did weddings and people, and as we do weddings and people. And the truth was, we were asked a couple times, and honestly, I hated it because it was frustrating, because I saw those pictures of, babies nicely nestled in certain positions and put into backdrops that just made amazing photos. And I was questioning my talent, because for the life of me, I couldn't get that because the kid was always moving. And then I had this photo shoot with Evie and Ben and Megan, and Evie was 4 days old. So here's the point. If you're going to do newborn photography, work with a newborn. The previous newborns that I worked with weren't newborns. They were like 4 months old and already moving and squawking. And with Evie, she still wanted to sleep 80% of the day. And it was just so fun, because where you put her is where she stayed. But I'm going to put up one of my favorite photos from the shoot. And I call it Daddy's Girl. And can you send out your prayers to Ben and for Ben and Megan and just best wishes. Ben was in a tobogganing accident in Winnipeg over the Christmas holidays, and it's a little bit of a miracle. Prayers work, but he fractured his spine in I think 2 or 3 places. Forgive me, Ben, if I misquoted the number, but anytime you fracture your spine, it's not good. The miracle is this: he's going to walk again. And the doctors, I think the surgery Ben said was about 7 hours, and he's going to walk again. And he's going to be okay. But so I cherish these photos even more. But it's called Daddy's Girl, and Ben's holding Evie, and Evie's kind of sleeping, but her face is, positioned to be looking up, and he's in her arms, and Megan is in the backdrop. She's probably like 6, 7 feet behind them. But in taking that photo, it focuses on Daddy's Girl. It focuses on Ben and Evie, but yet, you see Megan's face, and it's a little bit blurred. And that's called depth of field. And I love that effect. It says this is a family, but it's focusing on the father-daughter relationship. And so when you create separation between your objects that you're shooting in the backdrop, some cool things can happen, whether that backdrop is another person, or that backdrop is a building, or that backdrop is a lake. When you create separation, it focuses or it adds to the importance of what you're taking the photo of. And it actually makes you notice the backdrop even more because you do get that separation. And so perspective is everything, with the backdrop. How close is it? And what is the right photo? It comes with welcome back and just trying, put the truck right next to the building. And maybe because there's like, graffiti on it or whatever on it, you like the photo with the truck and the graffiti that's kind of blending right in. But so many times as I've begun to take photos, I've learned that for trucks, I really like to separate them from their backdrop. And it works out really well. And so another tip for you, whether you're taking truck photography or family photography, create some distance between the backdrop and whatever you're taking the photo of. And I think you're going to love the results. So as we head into our first break, and a little bit of music for a change of pace is always good. Perspective is everything, whether you're shooting down, up, or straight on. The distance between you and the subject and the distance between you and the backdrop. You can be in the same place with the same object and have very different looks. What's the right look? It's the one that you like the best, but it's hopefully widening your perspective, even with your iPhone or your Samsung phones, the quality of pictures that you can get just by changing your perspective. So enjoy the music. When we come back, we're going to expand some more on photography tips and how that applies to perspective. And then we're going to get to my interview with Dr. Randy Johnson and talk about how perspective is everything when it comes to relationships, whether it be at work or at home or with family, you name it. It's important. We'll see you soon. A couple other things around perspective, and that is lines and frames. Lines, what do I mean by that? Lines in a photograph actually can be anything. They can be the lines on a highway that you're taking the photograph of a truck on, or they can be cracks in the ground, or they can be a railing that's in the photograph that kind of actually visually has your eye go along that railing to see where it leads. Lines lead you somewhere. And so in your photographs, you can intentionally start to look to use the lines that are present in the space that you're taking the photo in to actually emphasize the whatever you're taking the photo of by putting them in the direction of where the line is heading. And one of the one of the better ones that I've seen posted is actually Jean-Nud Bark. He won the December Wild Trucks photo contest on the Wild Trucks Facebook site, and he is going to be in the 2022 calendar, and he's on Highway 66. And just the use of the lines on the ground, and actually his perspective was probably more crouched than it was straight on. I emphasize those lines. It's just a very cool picture. And for me, one of my favorite pictures using lines happened in southwestern Ontario many years back. I was, doing some stuff with NEL Insurance, Glenn Caldwell and crew, who have been awesome supporters of the calendar, and I thank them for that. They have a heart for the industry, and it's cool. And We were working with Team Truck Centers during that day. And at the end of the day, it was Bonnie at Team Truck, and she said, "Well, Dave, we've got this new model, and I wouldn't mind some images of it. Could you take some?" And I said, "Sure." And so we went back to their dealership, and they took me with this, this new Freightliner across to an empty parking lot. And really, there was nothing around. There was nothing pretty. There was nothing, and I'm looking at that and going, inside. I never said it, but inside, I was disappointed. It was like, well, what are we going to do here? And because there was really nothing around except for some sparse trees that were, scattered along, and this parking lot. And then I saw two things actually. I saw a tire that was lying on the edge of the parking lot, an old tire. And I think it was a truck tire. It might have been a car tire. Who knows? It was a tire. And this parking lot was not exactly newly paved. It was like a 110-year-old man or woman with beautiful age marks all over it. And growing in those age marks, which were cracks in the pavement, were weeds and grass, patches of grass that were growing. And so all of a sudden, from being disappointed, I thought, what if? And so what I did is, and when we talk about frames, it means you don't just stand in front of what you're shooting and have nothing between what you're shooting and what you're shooting. You actually frame it through something. That can be a branches on a tree. So you go into the tree and you shoot that person through the branches. And so the branches form a frame. But in this case, I mean, it's relevant to trucking. Tires are. I stood the tire up on the pavement. I placed the truck at the end of and beside this line of grass that was growing in the cracks of the pavement on this particular parking lot. And that's how I took the picture. And it's become one of my favorite pictures ever. Out of nothing, something was created. And I have to say, as a photographer, my family laughs at me because we'll be driving along and they'll look at something that seems to be just really torn down, ugly, whatever, and they just see me kind of focus on it, and they see me get lost in my mind, and they go, "You see a photo, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." You don't need the traditional definition of beauty to create beautiful photos. What you need are lines, frames, texture, and the ability to play around with those things. And I'm lying on the ground. The truck is looking a little bit bigger than it is. And it's one of my favorite photos. If you go to wowtrucks.com and you look at this episode, which is off the main page, you're going to see the replay of the episode. I will post this photo along with Ben's photo, Daddy's Girl, which I love as well. And you'll see some examples of that. And then if you go on the Wow Trucks Facebook page, you can look back in time to the new year, early in the new year, and Jean-Nude Bark, and just a beautiful picture on Highway 66. And you know what? I'm going to post it on the website as well. And it'll give you a really good idea of how perspective can help improve your photography. And I think you're going to like it. So just play. The first couple times you try, you may not get what you like, and you may go, "This sucks." That's okay. Keep playing and changing your perspective until you do find the things that you like, and you find the photographs that kind of really make you go, And the more you find them, the more that you'll see them. And the more you see them, the more you'll use them. And the more you'll use them, it's just going to, be this upward cycle that you're going to love. Or send it to me at david@wowtrucks.com. Gladly, obviously, give you credit for your work, but celebrate the photos that you're taking. And that's great. I know that there are a ton of great photographers out there that are posing as truck drivers currently, and have an amazing talent at getting images and using some of the stuff that I just talked about. So hope you enjoyed that. Now, it's important to photography. It's crucial to relationships. So same word, perspective, but we're going to move into a different topic. And perspective, when it comes to relationships, is a big part of whether in any situation you either respond or you react. I don't know about you, but there's different gaps or different ways that people tend to act in situations. Some of you, when something happens that shocks you, disappoints you, angers you, you may step back and you hold on to the thinking and you process it for like 24 years before you say something. For other people, what's on their mind is on their tongue between 0.0001 and 0.0002 of a second. And they just say what they're thinking. And while it obviously starts a conversation. Sometimes they can regret what they said. There's a balance in between. So here's a piece of advice. Know this: you don't know everything about what you just saw. You see, if you see it, you can achieve it. And the one pitfall of human nature is what we see is only a portion of the truth. In any situation, what we see is only a portion of the truth. And that's an important thing to remember. And so the application of that, whether you're at a loading dock and dealing with someone on a loading dock, you're dealing with a driver, you're dealing with a dispatcher, or you're dealing with a general manager, or you're dealing with a spouse or a family member, is when you see someone do something that you react to, especially in a negative way. And we're all not guilty of that, but we're all going to get that. We're humans. Can you inquire instead of accuse? It's always best to ask questions, to expand on what you saw. And so often when we do so, it's amazing how the situation calms down, wasn't what we thought, and actually improves relationships because we understand people and their behaviors better than we did before. Every time we do this, you know how relationships are a journey? If you agree, you can shout it out in your office or in your truck cab right now. Yes, they are. Every time you do this, you'll get better at relationships because it'll expand what you see. And when you didn't react to what wasn't the truth, the next time you see something similar, it's going to be a good reinforcement to have you step back and go, I've been there before. Okay, wait a minute. Inquire before you accuse. Last week, I had an awesome opportunity to sit down with a good friend of mine, Dr. Randy Johnson, and he's a psychologist in the area of relationships. And we talked about his new book, which is called "Could Questions Be the Answers?" And you know what? When he first gave it to me, I had no thought of bringing this on the Wow Show or putting it on Wow Trucks. I thought this has to do with the leadership training that I do, and it's going to be very applicable there. But the more that I read about it, and the more that I thought about it, this applies just to relationships, no matter where you are. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're driving on the road or you work in a transport office and you're dealing with people, which most of you, the listener, do a lot every single day, it's crucial skills. And so we had the chance to sit down and chat about, number one, why could questions be the answers? And then how does that apply to some common situations that I know that people in the transport industry face? So have a listen to our conversation. And when we come back from that conversation, we're going to give companies a special opportunity to attend a future show that we're going to tape on March the 24th. That'll actually be part of a future show where we will have a Zoom audience. This will be a Zoom call. And you're going to have the chance to present your situations. And we're going to have Randy online and we're going to talk about, how the concept of questions before accusations could actually help you improve those situations, make your life better, make your life easier. So we're going to take a quick break for some more music. And when we get back, my conversation with Dr. Randy Johnson on a topic applicable to your life at the loading dock, in the office, with your family. Could questions be the answer? Catch you soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. David Benyachek here, your host on the Wow Truck Show. Earlier on the show, we were talking about getting perspectives on taking better truck photos, and we're going to switch gears a little bit. And we're now going to talk about perspective on relationships. And don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about dating. I'm not going to be talking about marriage, none of those things, although this could potentially help in those areas. I'm thinking of, getting along with that person on the loading dock that's hard to get along with. I'm thinking about, that dispatcher that you're really kind of not seeing eye to eye with. There's a whole bunch of relationships that I know that you have in your day-to-day that it can either make your day awesome or it can make your day hell. And so today on the show, it is my pleasure to have a friend of mine, Dr. Randy Johnson, who is a psychologist specializing in relationships, to talk about a subject which is also the title of his latest book, Could Questions Be the Answer? Welcome, Randy.
Hey, Dave. Thanks. Glad to be here. Enjoyed you.
So when I first invited you on this show, I thought, you know what, like when I read your book, I thought truckers need to read this and transport companies need to read this because it can make their life a lot better. I had no clue that you have any, trucking experience, relationship with the trucking industry. I was going to do that, but you have that. So I discovered that yesterday. What was that?
Oh, well, I have a bit of a sordid history with the trucking, with trucks and trucking industry. One of my first significant experience was when I worked on a farm. We used to have to haul wheat, and we used to do the loading and unloading. Well, it was one day I was given this fairly new truck. It had maybe 700 miles on it. And I got on this one gravel road, loose gravel. And you know what loose gravel and speed does, hey? You lose control.
You do.
I lost control and we rolled the thing 2.5 times.
Okay, so we're not on you here. We're not on this, having you on this show to teach our guys and girls about better driving.
You know what? You wouldn't want to come to me.
Randy's school of how not to drive a truck.
Yeah, so you know what? The guy that was with me, he got injured, went to the hospital. I had to stay and load the thing back up. We rolled it up on the side, put the load into another truck, and it was just one big bad nightmare.
I don't know if they're going to want to listen to you now, Randy.
I did improve my skills, though, when I went working for another trucking company, Regina Cartage and Storage. So I had really good reviews there. I was able to do whatever I need to do.
Awesome.
In a way. I avoided those low bridges when you had too high of a top.
Yeah.
So it was good. Some of the other guys, they didn't have that.
Yeah.
They tried to take the bridge with them.
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought I gained a little bit of knowledge.
Well, but I just want to make it clear, listeners, Randy's not going to be talking about how to drive the truck better. We've got him here to talk about what he's an expert at, and that I think it actually is a really important topic. And so, Randy, you've just released this book, Could Questions Be the Answer?
Yeah.
Tell us, and I know you weren't thinking of truckers at the time, probably when you wrote this book, but why'd you write it? What's it about? What's behind it?
One of the number one problems we have dealing with people is communication or lack of communication or pure communication. So when I was thinking of this topic, I certainly had the skills that you get trained to help people in your counseling office with, but that gets a little bit cumbersome when you're trying to work with people just like on the street or in an office or in a trucking warehouse or whatever. It can't be like, so did I hear you say, could you please repeat what it's a little bit more direct. You don't have the time to really dance around this communication skill building stuff. So for me, I try to really look at communication. How can I really simplify this in a way that can help us to get to the point sooner without the conflicts that often come up in the dialogue? So this is where I really wanted to have the information for people to be able to understand why this approach. And even then some examples as to how to apply this approach.
I like it. Simplify communication. And it is important. I will tell you some good news. My many friends in the trucking industry, they don't have to learn how to be direct unless they're telling stories. Other than that, what I love about the trucking community is they have no trouble being direct, but it's just how to be direct
That's right.
and build relationships instead of tear them down.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's across the board, right? I mean, this is some issue that a lot of people in relationships have. You know, again, whether you're talking to the drugstore owner and you're trying to purchase something or other, you know, you can be direct. You may not get what you want,
Yeah.
but you know, at least you're communicating. But if you want to communicate in a more effective way,
Yeah.
you know, this is what we're trying to help everybody to do.
Cool. When I read your book, here's the one thing that kind of stuck out at me is that, you know, the nature of trucking is you're isolated a whole lot in your cab. And it's true that when I'm isolated, the danger is, and this is why questions are so important, the danger is my thoughts, the more I focus on them,
Yeah.
I don't have any questions anymore because they become my truth. And so as I started suspecting someone of something, put me 3 days in an isolated room and I will walk out convinced that they are the that I know they are. And you're saying that isn't always true.
Well, you know, so communication isn't just between people, it's even within yourself, right?
Yeah.
So if you're asking, say, the person at the store, where is this particular product? Okay, you're going to get help, and they're going to show you, or they're going to tell you, or whatever, so that you get whatever it is you come to get. Okay, when you have your own thoughts, are you asking why are you thinking that thought, or what are you hoping to accomplish by wanting to take that action? Are you having that dialogue within your own mind about really what is going to be good or not so good?
Yeah.
So when you're in this cab for these 3 days heading down this long road, you could really meditate on what it is that you think is right.
Yeah.
Or you can start to explore it yourself. Well, why do I think that? Or are there other things that I could actually think about that might actually change my perspective a bit?
I think the statement actually in my mind that makes questions so important is that we should all realize, because we've all spoken out of our thought and regretted it, is that I don't know everything. And as that statement is true, whenever we're in doubt or whenever we're having to have a difficult conversation, it's way better to inquire than accuse.
That's right. And you know, like just even from a functional perspective, like so your brain, how it works, the more angry or upset you are, the less you'll actually be able to think about the any other answer.
Yeah.
Unless you break it up by asking yourself the question. That's how you intervene in this closing down, shutting down, thinking only the way that you think.
Yeah.
Because the brain was designed to do that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to just fall prey to how it was designed. You can break that up.
So I want to talk about two things that I think really are powerful when you ask questions. And they're related to the leadership stuff that I do and just human nature, us humans. Humans are happier when we're in control. And questions put the other person in control. And I'll give you one example. I remember when I worked for Shell and there was this customer whose delivery of lubricants was going to be late. And I knew that them running out was a huge issue if that ever happened to them. And so I was quite sensitive about it. And I was ready to make a whole bunch of phone calls and pay like thousands of dollars to have it couriered to the customer to make sure they got it on time. And then this little voice inside of me said, Dave, just call them. Tell them what's happening. Commit that if they truly need it, you'll spend the bucks to get it there. But ask them if it's really that important.
Very good.
And when I made that phone call, all of a sudden the guy's, well, actually, Dave, no, we still got a ton left. And if you deliver it by 2 weeks Friday, we're all good. But buddy, I appreciate that phone call. And it was like, whoa, okay, write that down. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Before you go ahead and expend a lot of effort and a lot of reacting to something, find out if it's important or not, and in that way, ask the question. And you know what? When I asked the question, I put him in control. He could have said, Dave, spend $5,000, courier that because I need it.
Yep.
I earned brownie points, but he said, Dave, take 2 weeks.
Very good. Very good.
So this control thing, like, it's huge.
Like, we feel we have to have control within our own grasp.
Yeah.
Right? We don't realize that we actually can supersede that by giving somebody else control, because it's you giving control.
Yeah.
That's control in itself.
Yeah.
You have to think about what are the possible outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't, then you may react in a way that you don't like. Because if they would have said, no, we need it now, you could have been ticked at that, or you could have accepted it. Well, you already thought of that as an option.
Yeah.
I'll do it if I have to.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I don't have to, let's check and see if that's a possibility.
And I'm going to give you the knife, and you can hit me with it, or you can do whatever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how when you put people in control, they usually, out of appreciation,
Yeah.
choose the option that is most beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Dave, you can't imagine how often that is. It's like people melt. Like in my office, when I see this in these conflicts, whether it's siblings or whether it's couples or whatever, that really takes the whole temperature of that room right down.
Okay.
Because one, they can't believe that somebody's doing this,
Yeah.
and then two, they don't even know what to do with all that power that
Yeah.
you just gave them.
Yeah.
I
All right.
mean, so that action is very powerful in itself.
Okay.
If you feel you have to have control, you're always going to be hitting walls.
Yeah.
Because people will fight you on that.
And if you're hitting 5 walls in the same day, there's a common denominator. It's me.
There was an old clip they used to have, is that it would say, I've seen the enemy and it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can be our own worst enemy if we really feel we have to have control over everything.
Yeah.
And I know I'm exaggerating here, but that's sometimes what it feels like if I'm giving up, that I've lost everything. Well, it's not true.
Do you know what? It's like, I've learned this because we all want to control. It's a human nature, and it's not going to escape you. Every single day, you're going to have the urge to want to control your situation. Yeah. But when you do let it go, and the question is the way to let it go, it's amazing what freedom you get. And it's just, it's really empowering. So the second C word I want to talk about, I guess we're going to CC people in this interview today. So the first was control. The second is certainty. And I want to bring it back specifically to trucking. And then we're going to talk about a huge opportunity for people to be part of a future call where we're going to just take questions and answers. And we're going to take people's questions from the trucking industry, and we're going to be there, and we're going to spend an entire show just saying, okay, these are the common things that we go through. And what sorts of questions, what role does questions play in making those situations better? So thank you for offering to do that. I'm excited about that. Today's conversation is setting that up. It's around certainty. And that's the C word. And when I think of trucking, my application is this. It's in the dispatcher-truck driver relationship. The dispatcher is the face of the company for most drivers. And the truth is, both come into that relationship with expectations.
Absolutely.
And the magic thing in life is, if we get what we expect, we're happy.
Yeah.
If we don't get what we expect, we're not. And too many relationships between dispatchers and truck drivers in my history, in my experience, are ruined and go sour, not because they couldn't give them what they expected, but because they didn't know what they expected, because they never asked questions before the relationship began.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't clarify what it is you're thinking, and you're not helping the other person to clarify what they're thinking, then you have that uncertainty that exists between the two of you in that context. And that uncertainty, when it grows out of proportion, creates conflict. So if you want to avoid that conflict, then you have to create some certainty, some real clear understandings that the two of you have going forward, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I love it. It isn't conflict until we make it real, by reacting
That's right. Yeah,
to the situation.
absolutely.
And we do that. No, I love that. So control and certainty are big parts of the power of asking questions, and there's huge implications to what drivers do every single day. I think it's a good time to take a break, listen to some music. When we come back, more from Dr. Randy Johnson. We're going to talk about 3 situations that we can apply very specifically where it's good to ask questions and what sort of questions we might ask to gain a different perspective so that our interactions with people take a different course where they would have gone negative and potentially steering them to a more positive place, which helps everyone involved. So enjoy the music. We'll come back with that and a perspective on life on the road. Last week we had Ty Jam, who is one of the co-creators of the All Out Big Rigs No Limits group. And every month they hold a photo contest, and we've been showcasing the stories of people that win their photo contest. This past month, it was Justin Price, a pretty cool driver with Jade Transport. And when we're done talking with Randy and applying could questions be the answer, we're going to gain Justin's perspective on life on the road. This is a road veteran that you're going to want to listen to. So enjoy the music. We'll see you back in a bit. All right, Randy. So, my scars have healed over the years from times where I recognized I should have asked a question instead of just react. So let's run through 3 situations just very quickly to talk about them. And so the first is, I've gotten scars in the past when I've reacted to an email or a text that I thought was dishing me, that I thought was insulting me. Why are questions good? And what sort of questions did you ask? You get this text and the thing about text is you can't hear the person's tone.
That's exactly it. So you're trying to collect data so that you can understand. Otherwise, you will make assumptions.
Yeah.
So most of us, we make assumptions.
Yeah.
Because that just helps you to save time, save energy, all that kind of stuff. However, they also create all kinds of problems, which doesn't save you any time at all.
Yes.
So when you make this assumption that they're dissing you or whatever it is that you think they're doing, okay, then you're going to go on the defense immediately. That's how your brain works. It's there to protect you, your integrity, your whatever you think about yourself, and so on and so forth. So then you're going to come out feisty in a way to make sure you say, hey, back down. I'm not going to take this.
Yeah.
But it's the effect afterwards, when the dust is settled, what do you got?
Yeah.
Do you have this conflict? You have this broken relationship, or at least a greater distance between the two of you. And whatever you want, you're not going to be able to get because you've just blown it up.
You've made something that didn't need to be personal, very personal.
Exactly. So when you stop and think, okay, what is this person really trying to say to me? I could assume it, or I could actually just really ask.
Yeah.
If I'm a straight up kind of person, I'm going to say, what do you mean?
Yep.
What are you trying to say to me? I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's a straight up.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a straight up question.
Yeah.
And what it does, it puts that other person on the defense in some sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I wasn't trying to be offensive, or they could say, well, I'm ticked at you, or however it's going to be. Either it'll confirm your assumption or it'll just disconfirm your assumption. Either way, you're going to have this truth come to the surface that you both will be able to work out much more effectively.
As Jack Nicholson didn't say in A Few Good Men, you can handle the truth. Because we all have way too much crap in our lives, and we don't need any more that we create on our own.
Yeah.
On that one, I have to say there are times where I didn't even ask a question. I did, but I didn't respond on text. I picked up the phone and called them, and the second I heard the tone of their voice, it answered the question.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that extra piece of information, that data that you collected, saved you, saved them.
You've got to work with your dispatcher. You've got to work with your customer day after day after day after day after day. It's actually, it's not hard stuff if we just step back and think about it, and the question's the way.
There's so much more research coming out in terms of communication and this texting, emailing, and what is lost in terms of relationship, right? So when I can't hear how you are saying this, I can't see your face, and maybe you might be expressing, some real wanting to connect kind of expressions.
Yeah.
That's half, if not more, of the information that you need in order to be able to respond to it.
Yes.
Or at least not react. And so if you don't have all the information, then guess what?
Ask the question.
Yep.
Now, goes to my second point. Asking questions when you're not sure. And I mean, that sounds easy, right? If I'm not sure, I just ask the question. But my experience, and actually my weakness was, I didn't want to look bad in certain situations. So pride got in the way of asking the question. And I hung up the phone and thought, I'll figure it out.
So one of the things that kind of shows up in pride is this, we've been a victim at some time or other to somebody's comments, or somebody shamed us for something or embarrassed us or whatever. Well, we don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have that experience again. So I don't want to be a victim, so I'm going to come out on the offense.
Yeah.
To make sure that I'm not a victim. So that comes out in this pride reaction. So that response then, of course, is going to obviously limit any kind of further interaction because you now have set your position.
Okay, now I feel like I'm on the psychologist couch, Randy, because now I'm laying there and I'm kind of going, okay. So what was it that triggered, this is the question to myself, that triggered my unwillingness or fear to ask this question, and how do I deal with that? Because it's killing me time after time after time.
Yeah, so what we do is we try to track, okay, when was the first time you felt embarrassed in a situation like this? So we go back to that moment and unravel it a bit just so we can understand the belief that you established when you felt that experience.
Which is usually a lie, because we didn't question it at the time.
Which is usually a lie. So every experience that you have has an opportunity to create a belief or reinforce a belief and a feeling.
Yeah.
So those things are always together. Sometimes we cannot remember the actual belief, I'm no good, or they think I'm the worst person, or I'm an embarrassment to people. Whatever that lie is that you established that moment, you're now left with this feeling. And whenever that feeling comes up, you get defensive.
Yeah.
You may have forgotten the history of this, the origin of this feeling, but you haven't forgotten the feeling.
So to our listeners, because I'm speaking myself when I say this, is that if you find yourself constantly frustrated with others, like just constantly, like your days and your weeks are consumed with the idiotic behaviors of other people.
Yep.
There is a common denominator, and it was always me. You owe yourself these sort of conversations to make your day easier. You don't win by being mad at people all the time. And so much confrontation never needed to happen. So the last one is kind of, it seems ironic, but when I was sure, I've learned to ask questions.
Right. So when, even though you have the confidence of remembering the experience or the information or whatever that requires, to protect the integrity of the relationship that you want to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because even though you may know, they may not be clear. And by you elevating this understanding, you've now strengthened this relationship in a way that they may not even understood it. And you positively influenced them into a better direction. Well, isn't that what we want to do to help people in every area of our lives?
Definitely.
We don't need more tension, more conflict. We need more integrity and more relational
more friends.
Positivity. More friends.
Less enemies.
That's
now, this, in my life, I've learned that it's really important up front. So do you need to always ask a question even though you think you're sure? Maybe not always, but especially when relationships are new, or you're dealing with a customer for the first time, or you're sending a driver out for the first time, or you're working with a dispatcher for the first time. And it's not a trucking example, but it's one that makes me laugh to this day. My youngest daughter was 4 years old, and Mummy was in the kitchen and asked her to go and organize the shoes. Because the shoes in the front lobby were scattered all over the place and thrown here and there. And we had a shoe rack, which is a natural place to organize shoes.
Of course,
right?
Yes, of course.
And so 5 minutes later, she comes back all proud around the corner, smile on her face. And she's a do-gooder. Like Kira, I love you. And she says, I'm done. And so we walk around the corner, and here are all the shoes, neatly paired side by side, but forming this winding path from the front door to, and we just howled. Of course.
Oh man, that's good.
Never assume is the old phrase.
Yeah.
And questions are so crucial. And these are the sort of things where you blow up at an employee, or you blow up at a boss, or you blow up at, but you know what? It wasn't a conflict. The intention wasn't bad. And we could have prevented it just by simply, when things are new,
Yeah.
being a little bit more detailed around their understanding of what organizing the shoes are, or pacifying the customer is, or
Yeah. So even if you know you're right, even if you know what to do, if you assume the other person should,
yeah,
okay, then you both can lose.
Yeah.
So this is why I really underscore this whole integrity of the relationship.
yeah,
Is that you can help the other person to have this understanding that you already have.
yeah,
And you win more of their commitment
yeah,
and their support. And whatever it is you might need in the future,
Yeah.
this person can be there because you didn't embarrass them, make them feel ashamed, or look like an idiot, or call them stupid, or anything else that you could have done that you could have assumed.
Yeah.
As a result of assuming, I should say.
yeah,
So this is why, for me, it doesn't hurt to ask a simple question, even every time.
Yeah.
It may sound at first as, well, that's a stupid question. Why? They should know the answer to this one, or whatever. No, that there. One thing we always say: there is no stupid question for sure.
Yeah.
It's just you're going to protect something here by making sure.
And most people, they think, this is soft stuff. But here's the scoop. I mean, research shows in business, for example, that supervisors, managers usually spend 90% of their day dealing with urgencies.
Oh yeah.
And urgencies are created by, and I think even in our individual lives, whether you've got the business card or not, you're dealing with urgencies which are either real or emotional, both.
Yeah.
They're consuming your day. And the root cause is misunderstanding.
Yeah, that little extra time. And we all stumble with this. I don't care how many years I've done this as a therapist. I still make mistakes too. Okay, I don't communicate perfectly, but can I correct it faster now than I did before?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, but where I can, sometimes, like if I'm going to a customer service counter, for example, I will think through what are the questions I'm going to ask. What do I really want? And then what are their responses going to be? So I'm now kind of in my head got a bit of a dialogue that I'm anticipating.
Yes.
Well, that helps me to stay on track. There was, for a while there, I never used to go to customer service because I was too afraid to. Then I used to go and intimidate them. So when my wife started saying, be nice, I had to start to understand what kind of what do I want, and what kind of dialogue do I want in order to achieve that.
Yeah.
And that's what I practice more.
I like it. And so, as you're listening to this, we've stayed fairly high level as an introduction. I want to make this point. Questions and learning to ask questions, if the one thing you get out of it is it's going to make your life easier,
Absolutely.
it's going to reduce the crap, irregardless of what anyone else does. This is totally in our listeners' hands.
Yeah.
Then it's something you want to learn. And so, Randy, I thank you. We're going to have an opportunity, and I'm going to give them times and dates later in the show where we're going to dedicate an entire show to digging deeper. And so if you go to wowtrucks.com, questions or /questions, it's going to be the page on this show. We're going to invite people in the transport industry to submit their questions, be part of the Zoom call where we dig down deep and give specific recommendations for specific situations to make their lives better. And
Absolutely.
I thank you for doing that. Thank you. I'm looking forward to exploring more. Again, that website is wowtrucks.com /questions. And we're going to have Randy back, and it's going to be a blast. Keep on trucking, my friends. Hope your day's going well and the roads that you're on are treating you well. We're going to take a small music break, but when we come back, Mr. Justin Price, driver for Jade Transport, winner of last month's contest for All Out Big Rigs No Limits on Facebook. We're going to get his view on life on the road, what's working, what's not, and just hear from an incredible gentleman that is a pleasure to celebrate. Enjoy the music. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. Get ready. Mr. Justin Price is on tap. My interview with him and Ty Jam, organizer of All Out Big Rigs No Limits on Facebook. You're going to enjoy the interview. And then after this interview, just a preview, we're going to debut Shop Talk with Dave James at Bar J Heavy Mechanical in Balzac, Alberta. We've chatted in the past that this show is going to be about bringing on experts that know their stuff so that we can get better. Dave is definitely that. A family-run shop just outside of Calgary, incredible reputation for integrity. And Dave is going to, over the course of the next year and beyond, just provide us with helpful advice. Today's advice to end off the show is a cool perspective that every driver should really take care in doing, and that is how to do a pre-trip inspection the right way. So enjoy the interview with Justin, and we're going to follow that up with our first inaugural episode of Shop Talk with Dave James from Bar J Heavy Mechanical in Balzac, Alberta. Here we go. So, hey, Canada, welcome to the WOW Show. As you know, one of the things that we do on the show on a regular basis is to share stories from and for drivers on the road. And we have the privilege, I've got, well, two other gentlemen on a Zoom call right now, and you're hearing the audio. We are with Ty Jam, who is one of the organizers of All Out Big Rigs No Limits. And we're with Justin Price from Jade Transport. And he's the winner of this month's contest on the All Out Big Rigs No Limits site. Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Ty, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you again. Ty's going to become, if you listen to CBC, you see Power in Politics, they have the power panel. I have a feeling because this dude's awesome that Ty is going to be one of our regular guests, and you're going to hear his voice a lot, and that's a good thing because you can learn a lot from this man. Justin, tell us about first of all, tell us about your ride. I mean, Jade Transport, one of the nicest fleets on the road, and you've got a pretty special, I believe it's a 2019 Pete. Tell us about your ride that you go up and down the highways with.
Yeah. So it's a 2019 389 short hood on car hauler suspension. It's got a 2006 Caterpillar motor in it.
Yeah.
And we've dressed it up pretty good with a lot of the shift product stuff through Jade. Yeah. Just a 240 base. It's my little hot rod. I'm quite happy with it. Yep.
Well, you know what? And knowing Larry and knowing the guys at Jade, I mean, you can't be with a better company. And I know they award trucks based on merit. So talk about when they presented this to you, how that went, and how you got this truck.
Okay, so Jonathan had been telling me about these new trucks they were speccing out, and he kind of told me what he was going to do about this one specific truck. So one weekend, Larry and Kim had came to Saskatoon, and they invited me out for dinner. And Larry had started talking about what he was doing to this one truck and asking my opinion on certain things, how I would do this and do that, certain types of wheels and exhaust. And then he invited me to come to the Class Pace display in Denton, Texas, and that's how he told me I was getting this truck.
That is a sweet invitation.
So if anybody knows about the Class Pace display, it's an invitation-only show at the Peterbilt factory. Jade has a standing ovation or standing invitation every year, and so that's how I got to go. It was pretty cool.
I love that. So I'm just going to make a call out to any fleet managers that are listening right now, and this is truly at my heart, and Jade kind of proves it. A lot of people say we're in a driver shortage, but if you treat your drivers right, there is no shortage. You're going to attract the best of the best. And Jade is, I love what you said. He sat me down and he listened. How many bosses out there listen to their people? and then offering to send you, that's a slice of heaven. I love it. Tell us about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born in Peterborough, Ontario.
Okay.
Born and raised in Bancroft, Ontario, which is about 2 hours west of Ottawa.
Oh my goodness. I was there this summer. It's a small little town. And a good
Yeah,
friend of ours, they have a cottage in Ottawa. They were born and raised there. So I was out in Bancroft. So Bancroft, Ontario, all 521 of you. Hello.
yeah.
What was life like growing up in Bancroft?
It was fun. We had to find a lot of our own activities and fun, but we managed.
Yeah.
We well, when I was in high school, we all had CBs and our CB radios in our cars,
Yeah.
and we used to run around town at nighttime. We used to play hide and go seek in our cars with CB radios.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
was a lot of fun. Yeah, we play that for hours. We never get into trouble with the cops that way because we just kept ourselves occupied, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm a big believer when it comes to, kids and teenagers and whatever. Sometimes I think we overschedule them and then they can't figure out what to do with themselves on their own. And when you're in that environment where you have to make your own fun, it's amazing how it just gives you creativity and you do stuff that you have a blast with and no one structured it for you, but it's an amazing thing. So that's pretty cool that you were in Bancroft and I was in Bancroft. Another link we figured out because Ty, you met Justin in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is where I went to high school. So tell me about meeting this guy and what your impressions were.
Actually,
Sorry, sorry,
Justin,
I just
didn't we
missed what
meet?
he was saying there. The phone froze up there for a second.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, no problem. I heard you fine. So I'm just saying, I was just telling Ty that it's kind of cool. Bancroft is a tie between you and me, and then Sault Ste. Marie is this tie between all three of us because that's where he met you. And
Right.
so I'm just asking him to tell us what first impressions were.
when I first met, I something tells me I've met Justin once before, the Sault Ste. Marie, but the meeting him in Sault Ste. Marie is something that's really stuck out in my mind with him. I think he came up to me first and said, "Hey Ty, how's it going?" or whatever, and I recognized him and his truck from the group,
Yeah.
and I noticed he was wearing a T-shirt. Tina from Lesco had put my truck on one of their T-shirts, and he was
Nice.
wearing my T-shirt. I was like,
Yeah.
Well, this is
So-
another link because Tina and Lesko just signed up to support the show. And so I'm very grateful for them. I love what they do, both for people in the industry through their toy run and other stuff. So we just keep connecting. So keep on going, Ty. Tell us about Justin.
yeah, and we just visited there for a while, and I think we were going opposite directions, or maybe one of us was staying the night there. I think I had my oldest kid with me too,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was basically it. But
Yeah.
We
So
just came from the Clifford Truck Show. I was on my way back west. I had spent the weekend at the truck show. Yeah, and Ty was
That's
going
right.
one way and I was going the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that people in the trucking industry have a better memory than others? I'm constantly amazed by how the people that I talk to remember specifics about something that happened like 25 years ago. And I like for myself, I'm clueless. Like I'll kind of remember what happened and who was there, but just this, like it's awesome that you remember where you were coming back from. That's insanely good. I love it. Now, Justin, we have another thing in common. I come from Ontario. I was born in Port Colborne, Ontario, and then I moved up to Sault Ste. Marie, but I ended up out west. So I was the lone person in my family to heed the call, go west, young man, and ended up in Calgary. You're in Saskatoon. Tell us about
Yeah.
what got you out to the west and how you landed up in Saskatoon.
Well, at the end of 2013, I left Woodstock, Ontario, where I'd actually been working since I graduated high school for Laidlaw Carriers. I was going to go to Grand Prairie to work in the oil patch for 4 months, but I stayed for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then the oil patch started to crash. I had been trying to get on with Jade years ago, but because I'm an insulin dependent diabetic, I wasn't able to drive a commercial vehicle in the US. So trying to get me home to southwestern Ontario was going to be a very big issue. So it wasn't going to work. So before I left Alberta in the end of 2015, I called Henry in our office and I said, "What about now? Like,
Yeah.
could something work?" And he told me about this new division they had started in Saskatoon. He said, "If you're interested and willing to relocate, you can speak with Jonathan, and we'll see what can happen."
Awesome.
Jonathan called me that afternoon. We had about an hour-long conversation on the phone, and he says, "I love it. Let's do it." 3 days later, I left for Winnipeg for orientation, and here we are 5 years later, and I'm still ticking away.
And you're helping him run the Saskatoon division. That's awesome.
Actually, I am. So I'm his senior man. When he take holidays or needs to go away for any kind or just needs some time off,
Yeah.
I will jump in and go behind the desk for days or a week and dispatch and
Yeah.
kind of look after things as I can.
That's cool. So a quiz question, with a license or without a license, at what age did you first drive a truck?
I was able to drive by the time I was by the age of 8. I was able to do it by myself. I was by the time I was 11, I was unloading a pneumatic tanker by myself. Yeah,
Wow.
That's
and
crazy.
there might have been a few trips alone when I was 16 years old
Yeah.
at nighttime. Yeah, but yeah, it started at a very young age. I the first trip I made in the truck with my dad, I was a year old.
Yeah. Well, tell us
Yeah, so
about
I've
him.
grown up around it. My dad's been an owner operator for years. He's been in the industry 40 plus years. So it's
Kudos.
been
Is he still going?
yeah, he's just seasonal now. He drives a dump truck over in the Muskokas, just seasonal.
Well,
And yeah.
I thought you were going to say he carries a load down to Florida around November and then brings a load back to Ontario in April.
I wish.
Yeah, no kidding.
What's your dad's name, Justin?
My dad's name is Bob Price.
Yeah. Well, Bob,
He's my best friend and my biggest mentor in life and in for my career.
Shout out to you. Thank you for what you do and did. And thanks for raising a cool kid. Justin, it sounds like well, it's obvious. It's pretty easy within even a few minutes of meeting someone to establish whether they care about what they do or they have a heart for what they do. And you've obviously got it. What drives your love of trucking and life on the road, and where does that come from?
Oh, just being in the industry, just going out and seeing the countryside and learning from some of these older boys that have been in it for a while, like hearing their stories and meeting new friends and old faces and everything about it that I love. The trucks, maybe not so much the trucks nowadays, but some of the older stuff for sure.
Yeah, what is your dream truck? If you could have any truck in the world for the rest of your career, what would it? Time doesn't matter. Obviously, they only began at a certain point in time. But what's your dream truck?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
Listen up, Larry.
I like the old Pete's, the old Kenworth. My dad had a 1980 Kenworth,
Okay.
255 wheelbase with a mechanical Cummins in it, and that was a pretty cool truck. If I could do something like that, that would be probably a goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. What's your biggest? Not you're not a man that focuses on beefs, but what's your biggest concern about the industry today?
Some of the new drivers and their lack of professionalism and class
Okay.
and their skill. It's really getting sad, to be honest with you.
Okay.
No,
And what do you
there's
think?
no. Sorry.
No, I say, what do you think contributes to the change in attitudes in the industry? Because you're not the only one to say that. And there are a ton of great young drivers out there. We showcased one in your group last month. So it doesn't mean they don't exist. But
Oh no, absolutely.
the Knights of the Road tends to be generational, right? And so what do you think caused that shift?
Lack of training.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the biggest one, and people just wanting to be truck drivers and thinking they're going to make $1 million doing it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still an industry that you have to work for. You have to work for your money,
Yes.
and we all have to work together to do it too. It's just not everybody. It's just everybody's out there for themselves these days, and nobody wants to, stop and help a stranded driver or somebody that's broke down, or there's just, nobody pays it forward anymore.
Right. Yeah, and that's why we're showcasing the ones that do. So hopefully it snowballs and continues to grow back. I know I mean Ty knows this about me. I'm a huge believer in community, and that's what I love why I love what he does through all the big rigs. It's amazing how today's society is all about me and all about personal development, but people develop the best when they're in community. That's where it happens. It's not in isolation. So I'm with you, Justin. You know what? But on the issue of driver training, and then I'll leave it alone. And I'm the photographer. You guys are the drivers. But I think that standards are good, and kind of what you said, even inadvertently, Ty, is really correct. In that, as we raise the standards to become a trucker, because too many truckers don't appreciate how skilled they are at what they do. And I think that's going to help a lot at bringing back the Knights of the Road and bringing back self-esteem and people feeling good about being part of a community. Is just having to work a little bit for this particular designation, so they recognize that what they do is not easy, and like it's not a default. It's a professional trade, and it's important.
I think that some of the blame should be pointed towards these mega fleets as well. Obviously not saying any names or anything like that, but their turnover rate is extremely high because their rates are really low, and anybody with like our kind of experience would never go up and down the road for the rates that they're paying their drivers.
Yeah.
So that kind of reflects on the skill, because when you have a high rollover rate on your drivers, you're always going to be short on drivers. Yeah. So you're going to be trying to help these guys, rifle them through getting their license, not giving them the proper training. Like when I think back to when I got my license, they didn't teach me how to unload. They didn't teach me, very rarely, like I had to back up in a straight line. That's it. They never taught me how to back into a parking spot or nothing like that. So you get a lot of these guys that are just being pushed through it. And they're being told you're going to make good money. This is an easy job. And they don't know any better. So it's not really the driver's fault when they have an accident or something bad happens. It is, like Justin said, lack of training, and it kind of, to me, those mega fleets are kind of ruining it when you look at it at that angle.
Yeah, and so and that's where I'm not a huge fan of government getting involved everywhere, but creating that environment where there are some higher standards, I think, is probably a good thing, and a good thing that the government's doing.
I agree with 100% about that. With these big fleets, and these guys, we're the first ones to jump and say something nasty about somebody that has an accident, but it's not, like Ty said, it's not because they're dumb, or it's just because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't take the time anymore to stop and help them when they are having troubles.
I think that is so dead on, Justin. We need to separate people from the circumstance. And I'm with you. This criticizing them is not okay in my books, because they were part of a system that just pushed them through, and probably they needed the income or whatever, and so they go along. It's not their choice per se, but so I love that differentiation you made. We can talk about a lack of training for new drivers without criticizing people. And that's important, because people make this industry. And the
driving schools, they don't teach you enough anymore. They teach you enough to pass the test, and send you on your way.
Yeah.
I myself, I don't know about Ty, but I myself didn't go to driving school. I learned from sitting in that seat to the right of me here and watching and learning.
You've had that truck that long? I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. 2019, you're still wet behind the ears, eh?
I thought you said it was 5 years ago.
19 years ago. I've been driving now for 19 years.
That's awesome. So what does the future look like for you? I mean, you kind of landed. It's like playing for the Lakers in the NBA or playing for, well, I guess now it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL with now that Brady's there, or the Peterborough Petes. Like you're playing with the franchise. What's the future look like for you?
You know what? I'm just gonna keep plugging away until something more happens for me here, or I'm ready to settle down.
Yeah,
I'm quite happy here. I have no thought at all or want to change anything about where I am right now.
that's cool.
I'm quite content here with my job. You know, the people I work for and the people I work with, and I just want to keep going and see where it goes.
That's sweet, sweet. So where all are you running these days?
I just started running, well, the U.S. Last year, but mostly now I'm in the U.S. But anywhere in Canada and down in the States here right now.
Okay.
I've been this summer. I was down in Douglas, Arizona, right at the Mexico border, Denver, Colorado. A couple weeks ago, I was out as far as Skowhegan, Maine. Yeah, just I Vancouver,
Yeah,
Quebec, Ontario, just anywhere.
I like it. We
Where the
got
really
beautiful.
running is, I'll go.
It's a beautiful continent. Do you have a favorite piece of road to drive?
Um, you know what, David? I love it all. I mean, Northern Ontario is getting kind of, that used to be one of my favorites, but it's getting pretty rough. But if I had one place to say was my favorite over the years, was probably my trip to Newfoundland back in 2013. I got to go to St. John's, and driving my truck onto a big boat sailing across the ocean was kind of nerve wracking. But yeah, it was probably the best trip I've ever made.
Well, we have another connection there because when you mentioned Northern Ontario, it probably still is to this day. In the fall time, the drive from the Sioux to Winnipeg along Highway 17 and Lake Superior, and the
Yeah.
colors in Northern Ontario, can't beat it. Like it's just
Beautiful.
phenomenal. Ty, do you have a favorite piece of road?
Uh, I'm kind of with Justin on this one. I would say one of my favorite runs to do is from Saskatoon to Houston, and it's more of a sentimental journey than anything. I used to do a lot of runs. Well, it was pretty much Edmonton to Houston, but I did a lot of runs back and forth, and kind of fell in love with that run. And you can drive it and never even look at a map. You know where all the good stops are, the good places to eat, and I don't know. That's one of my favorite runs.
Okay, that's sweet. Now, if you're listening to this on the radio show, you need to know because you can't see it, but Ty has paid tribute to Justin by turning on the same color lights in his cab as Justin has on in his. So,
It was getting dark. I couldn't see my face anymore.
so let's end off with this. Number one, Justin, thank you for what you do. Your attitude fits right in with the company that you drive for, and fits in with what we celebrate here at well, certainly in the group that you're part of, All Out Big Rigs, No Limits. That's you fit into their motto, and with Wow Trucks celebrating, excellence on the road, you're all there. If you were to give us one motto for life on the road from Justin Price, what would it be?
Oh boy. Pay attention. Don't get cocky.
Yeah,
Listen to the old boys and take advice. Soak up as much information and knowledge as you can from the older generation.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, just be careful, be safe, and enjoy it.
yeah. No, I love it.
Awesome.
And so thanks, Justin. I'm going to end off with one thought on that. Great companies, they don't just hope that younger drivers learn from older drivers. They actually pair them together when they begin their career. And so that they create an environment where they have to spend time together. And I think that goes a long way to building team and
Yeah.
is sharing that knowledge and doing that stuff. And so if you're a fleet out there and you're struggling with, younger and older getting along, sometimes it's because they don't know each other. And so that, my experience with fleets that pair them early on and give them younger drivers mentors and let them learn, it really pays off. And so it's kind of cool that's kind of what's happened to you and what's gonna, you're able to probably to do to others as you help out in the Saskatoon branch. So keep on driving, my friend. You're appreciated. Great to tell your story. And I'm sure we'll be chatting with you again.
Great.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Ty. Thanks, David. Nice to meet you.
Hey there. Welcome back. David here with The Wow Show. Get ready for episode number 1 of Shop Talk with David James at Bar J Mechanical, Heavy Duty Mechanical in Balzac, Alberta. Was out there about just over a week ago with David Michelle, and we filmed episode number 1. This is about just helpful information from a mechanic's perspective to help you save money on maintenance, save time being pulled over by DOT, none of which you need too much of in your life. And so for segment number 1, we went outside. It was a windy day in Calgary, which really is almost every day. And Dave is going to walk us through how to do that pre-trip inspection of your truck right. Episode number 1, here we go.
Hey, it's Dave from Bar J Heavy Mechanical. Here are some of the segments you can look forward to on Bar J Shop Talk. We're going to be focusing on preventative maintenance, pre and post trip inspections for every trip that you do, and maintenance for your batteries, the heart of your vehicle. Hey, this is Dave from Bar J Heavy Mechanical. Welcome to a segment of Shop Talk here. Today we're going to go over what to look for preventative maintenance wise, what you're looking for on a pre-trip inspection on your truck before you head out on the road. It's important to do a pre-trip before you leave, and it's very important to do a post-trip as well when you come back. But today we're going to go through the pre-trip. So starting at the front of the truck here, of course you want to have a good look at your lights and everything. Make sure that there's no cracks, splits, lenses missing, lights out. It's easy for the DOT to give you guys a ticket when they find an easy thing to write up, like a light. So try and keep the low maintenance, easy stuff to a minimum if you can. Follow along here. Have a good look at your tires, your steer tires for cupping, wearing on the edges both ways. If it is wearing on the edge, you've likely got an alignment problem. It's not a hard fix. Take it to a shop and have that addressed. You want to take a good look at the sidewalls of your tires for any rips or cracks or anything. The steer tire blowout can be detrimental, so you really want to pay close attention to your steers. As far as the wheel nuts go, you want to make sure nothing's spun. You can see on this truck here, and a lot of trucks out there have these chrome covered caps on them. It's a really good idea to take these caps off. This doesn't tell you if wheel nuts are loose or not. This does. And you can tell, like you'll see like a rust mark or something in behind there. Really, really important to take care of your wheel nut torque. Coming back here, going along the whole truck, you want to just put your hands on stuff. Make sure it's secure and tight. Mirrors, mirror brackets, fenders, mud flaps, battery box cover on both sides, grab handles, exhaust stack shields. These are notorious for vibrating loose on the bolts and stuff, and it'll drive you crazy going down the road. So it's a good idea to just take care of this before you get in your truck and take off. Just a nice tap, feel around, make sure all the bolts are nice and secure. Here too, you can look for exhaust leaks and that. Exhaust leaks, of course, it's an annoyance, but it's also a health concern when you got like an exhaust leak under your cab. So keep a good eye on that. Have a good look at your fuel tank straps and mounting. Make sure nothing is going to come loose or fall off. Like I say, put your hands on it, feel it, grab the straps. I mean, you'll know right away if it's loose or not because you'll feel a vibration in the strap or something, right? So fuel caps, def tank caps. Make sure that I've seen lots of trucks come in the shop, fuel tank caps loose. So it's a really easy thing and a common thing to look for. Load securement, this has got a gravel box on it. Most trucks just have a fifth wheel. Check for load flaps here, mud flap brackets and that. Have a nice look at your frame. Try and keep your frame as clean as possible. I know it's muddy, slushy season, that kind of thing, but try and take a good look at those bolts. Keep the corrosion off the bolts. The mounting parts will last a lot longer that way. Moving back to your drive tires, have a good look at the tread pattern across them. Watch for wear, watch for sidewall wear, cracks, that kind of thing. If you see a tire that's got way less tread than the other, there's a good chance maybe the tire inflation is lower. That's an easy check when you're going around with your hammer tapping them. You might see one that's a little bit low or flat. So good look around the rim too. It's easy to see if a tire is off the rim. Again, your wheel nuts, remove the caps and have a good look because those are covering up maybe an issue. So have a good look at that. Have a good look at your frame, like you say, coming back here. Have a look at your airbags and suspension, spring hangers, that type of thing. Mud flaps on the back. Mud flaps on the back are super important. The DOT will pull you over for this. They'll put you down and out of service. It's a very easy fix. Not a bad idea to have a mud flap on board with you when you're going out. Coming back to your trailer, this is very important. You want to make sure your trailer coupling is good, especially if you're parked at the truck stop overnight or on the side of the road overnight. You want to make sure nobody's messed with your hitch connections before you take off. It's your responsibility, being the owner of the truck, to make sure that everything is in top-notch condition. If it's not, you shouldn't be driving it, and the DOT will be very upset with you about that. They won't be nice. Look at your hitch coupling. Make sure everything's locked up down here. Make sure your securement chains are nice and snug and not dragging on the ground. If they drag on the ground, they're going to wear them apart. The DOT will call you on that if they see flat spots on the chain. Talking about this down here. Look at your couplers. Make sure they spring back. Some couplers break off, go to the side, but they need to clamp in the middle like that. Make sure they're nice secure. Make sure the pins in here are nice and secure. The chain can't fall out. Have a good look at your hitch mounting hardware. Have a good look at the air lines back here. Make sure they're nice and secure, no air leaks. Lots of times if a glad hand's not put on properly, it'll leak a little bit. It's as easy as that. Grab the glad hand and slide it back on. It should fit in nice and easy and no air leaks. Also have a good look at your trailer cord. Doesn't hurt to pop it off. This one's been in there for a while. Have a good look if you see corrosion on your pins and that kind of stuff like that. It's going to give you problems on your trailer. Could back feed up to your truck. This one's fairly nice and clean, so that'll keep them going for a long time. Also, when you push your plug in, make sure it locks. You can see the tab there on the lid. See that? Make sure it locks in place so it's nice and secure. All right, now we'll go up and go down the other side. Always check grill, bumper, securement, front end. Anything that's loose, try and address it as soon as possible, or before you head out on the road, it's just going to rattle and drive you crazy. Have a good look at your wipers. Try your wipers when you start the truck. Make sure they're making good contact with the windshield. It's always a good idea to keep a couple spare wipers on board with you. You can see on this truck there's two separate wipers. Obviously he had to change one down the road, so he had a spare to put on. Lights again. Hood latching, hood securement. Just a quick tap, make sure everything's nice and secure. Steps, covers, grab handles. Here again, exhaust shield covers. Check securement in your frame. This truck has a hydraulic tank, obviously, for the box. Check your straps. Check for any leaks or anything that looks like it's leaking for a while. Like you can see, this is a little bit of residual, not a big deal, but if anything looks fresh or shiny or clean, like clean shiny, there's an obvious a pronounced leak. Caps again, frame rail bolts, mud flaps, securement, and brackets. Have a good look at your welds and stuff on the box and on the frame when you're coming down. Again, tire tread, make sure it looks nice and even. Lug nuts, remove the covers and have a look at the bolts. That's very important. Look for cracks, almost look for cracks between the lug nuts on the rims. Say if a rim wasn't torqued down properly, or if it's starting to walk on you, you'll see signs of cracking or distortion. And again, rear drive, rear mud flap securement. Have a good look in there. Hitch mounting supports and hardware and that kind of thing. If everything's good, if your lights are good, if your tires are in good condition, you should be in good shape to go down the road.
Now that was just some really good advice. Thanks, Dave. Bar J Heavy Mechanical with Shop Talk, and it's going to be a regular feature. So stay tuned on future programs for help across the spectrum of better maintaining your truck, your fleet, saving money, and just being smart about it. And it's really, really good. Today's wow, as we come to a close on today's show, is how different segments, four seemingly very different segments, they do tie together. You know what? Some of you believe that you are not creative, you're not innovative, that change to something that is better is hard to accomplish because you just don't see it. But it's actually not that complicated. And I don't believe you have to be born creative or born innovative to find new solutions to your situations that you're in life, whether it's career wise or personal wise. I think it's as simple as this, is that someone who has the audacity to every single day or on a regular basis look at something different, read something different, listen to something different, listen someone out that you previously really have kind of judged and not wanted to listen to. It's the intentional exposure on a regular basis to new things. And cool things happen. I mean, we talked about it in pictures. Instead of just taking the same old pictures from the same old spot in the same old way, try up, down, shooting up, shooting down, shooting straight away, try shooting through frames, try shooting with lines, try shooting closer to the subject, try backing up, try giving more space between the subject and the backdrop. And all of a sudden, you're in the similar environment, but you're getting way different results, and results that can kind of give you that extra pep and go, yeah, I love that. And it's something that just kind of builds excitement. And then, when we talk about asking questions, could they be the answer? They are. If you want to gain a different, and it's cool, questions will give you a different perspective on people. And so often that person is not who you thought they were and judge them as being. Guilty as charged. So often you didn't see the whole story and I didn't see the whole story, and we made judgments and we burnt a bridge that really, truth be known, had we known the full story, didn't need to be burned. For some of those, it's too late, but for many of them, it's not. And questions are the answer. And as they broaden your perspective on who people are, they're going to make your relationships a lot more rewarding. They're going to put a lot more better ones in your life. And there's power to broadening our perspective on the people around us. Some people who are driving you crazy, and this happened to me, they're in your life for a reason. I remember my first boss in oil and gas where I worked. Some people called her Hitler. And I used to laugh and giggle. And you know what? She was driven. So she would kind of not stomp, but that was kind of the posture. She was very purposeful in her walk in the mornings when she would come in. And, she had high expectations of the people around you. And she wasn't one to sit around and necessarily just talk with you for half an hour over a coffee and, delve into this and that. And you know what? She was driven for results. But those that labeled this individual Hitler lost out because as she was driven for results, and yes, she had high expectations of us, if you dared just meet her there and try to do your best and hop alongside in terms of achieving results, she did more for my career than anyone else ever did. I had bosses that I could go for lunch with, have a beer with, laugh with, really kind of connect on a personal level. And I connected with her in a different way. We did connect. The relationship was strong, but it wasn't a buddy-buddy sort of connection. She did more for my career because as she had high expectations of us in our roles, in the boardrooms when it came time to figuring out who got promoted, if you fought for her and for her ideals and her vision and her mission, she fought for you. Don't judge a book by its cover. We've all done it. Guilty as charged. But I've learned that finding out more, questioning instead of accusing, is just a really cool way to land on better relationships that are mutually beneficial. And then that kind of walked right into our conversation with Justin Price and Ty Jam. What a cool individual Justin is. And he broadened his perspective. I love what he said, because the generational gap is a large gap. There's a number of gaps, not only in trucking, but a number of industries, whether it's generation or race or language or whatever you have. I love this discussion. He was honest to say that there was some frustration with generational, and that probably goes both ways. But he had the wisdom through our conversation to step back and say, you know what? It's not the person, it's the environment. We are all the product of our environment. They grew up in a different environment than I am. They're good people, their environment. And what that does, when you can step back and not make things personal, that's a great perspective. Then all of a sudden you can tackle, to make stuff better, you can tackle the thing that's actually really going to have the most effect, because you can't change people. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but good luck. You need a lot of aspirin, Tylenol, or alcohol, or whatever your choice of sedation is when you try to change people around you. But you do have control of the environment that you create. And I've encouraged you guys a lot. The environment you choose to put yourself into today is going to determine where you'll be 5 years, 10 years from now, more so than any sort of, personal discipline to work 24 hours a day and only get maybe 2 minutes of sleep and do all of that and bust your butt in that way. And I'm not saying don't work hard pays off. But if you're not in the right environment, it'll crush your hard work. And that's not a great place to be. And so, you know what, yeah, that was cool. And then just to end off with a very practical application of perspective. When you start asking questions and on a pre-trip inspection, you start, going through what Dave ran through, that these are the signs of this. These are the symptoms of a root cause. And you know what? When you take that perspective and you have the audacity to ask those questions early, when you start seeing them on parts of your truck, it's going to save you a ton of money. It's not trucking, I remember, but I was talking to a gentleman on a plane. He worked in the software industry, and he said a bug caught early cost a certain amount to fix. But, every month that you don't catch that bug and it goes by and it has its effects, the cost is 1,000 times more. And I'm not saying that's the same ratio in your truck, but I think the principle is the same. And so, wow, perspective. It's everything from pictures to people to engines. My challenge to you is to step back and every single day seek a different one. You may not agree with it, but exposure to new things will introduce new things to you that will be powerful to your business, powerful to your relationships, and powerful to your life. Once again, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. You guys and gals rock. You're heroes on the highway. Have a great week. We'll catch you next Monday. God bless.